Hi, welcome to Keizer Traffic Safety Bikeway Pedestrian Safety Meeting. And it's 6 o'clock. We're all here. We've got a quorum. We've got visitors from our audience. Have you had a chance to review the minutes? They were sent out. We got about 9 pages of minutes. Have our members had a chance to review those?
I move we accept the minutes, approve the minutes for the August meeting.
Second.
Okay, got a first and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. So the minutes are approved.
Abstained.
Abstained. Pat abstained. She was on travel. And we've got some members of our audience here today. Anything you'd like to tell us? Not yet? Okay. Yeah, we're going to work on that. We've got a few other items on the agenda today too. Okay, so we are going to move on to item number 3 now, the House Bill, item number 4 rather, House Bill 27, Safe Routes to School project. We've got 2 projects that have been proposed, one for Kennedy, one for Cummings areas. The statement of letter of intent has been written for both of them and sent in on time. We're in the process of, before we actually do the application, there's a worksheet that we need to fill out for each one, and a lot of questions. I'm working on the one for Kennedy, and Pat is working on Cummings. Pat and I met this week, and we talked about the proposal for Cummings. And the proposal is to build a pathway from Chemawa to the north end of the school, 10-foot wide pathway, multi-use pathway, merging into the school. Currently it's written as it goes into the fence, but actually there would be 2 fences, so people not on school business can use the pathway. But we did discuss that there's some issues with that plan. Pat, you want to share some of those issues?
Well, yes, I have been speaking with some of the committee members and with Bill Lawyer also about that proposal and whether characterizing this or proposing as a pathway as opposed to a sidewalk is appropriate. I mean, there is some concern that I've expressed about it, how that does or does not conform to the accepted design practices that ODOT has published. And since they are the ones that are awarding this money, we need to make sure that our proposal is going to be seen as a reasonable and appropriate solution according to the engineers and other staff that are reviewing it. So that's what I was talking to Wayne, also talking to Bill Lawyer, and I guess hoping that the committee and the council and the neighborhood committee and that we can all get together and be confident that our proposal is the right width and the right type of facility to compete well, because it would be a shame to put all this work into it and not have it compete well. So I've still got some calls to make with the school district. I think part of what Wayne and Bill and I talked about the other day too was that it's kind of hard for us to develop our proposal fully without knowing what the school district intends to do or is willing to do. So that's one thing I am going to try to nail down, is find out what their decision process is, as well as their timeline, and whether we can work together to make it more of one seamless facility from, all the way from Cummings to Chemawa, instead of like 3 different pieces that are patched together. So, Wayne, I don't know what else we wanted to report on that. Yes, I do plan to work on the application, and that will involve some more conversations, I think, with the school staff, with the school district staff, with the neighborhood association, with ODOT staff, to discuss both engineering criteria as well as what we can and cannot count for the matching funds. And then I know Bill and Mike, I mean, I guess they're already, you know, obviously working up the cost estimates, so the sooner we can refine what the scope of the project is, then we can narrow down the cost estimates as well.
When's the due date?
October 12th. We have to have it submitted by October 12th. Okay, so also for Cummings, I've received 4 letters of commitment from the community saying that they're in favor of a project at Cummings. We've got one from Magna Romero, principal at Cummings Elementary. We've got a letter from Eric Jefferson, principal of McNary. We've got a letter from Carol Dorfler as a crossing guard in support of a project. Got another letter from Carol Dorfler, president of West Keizer Neighborhood Association. And we've got, so all 4 of these letters are in favor of a project at Cummings. Okay. For Kennedy, we're still working on some letters. There's some things that we can still do to improve our chances for both schools. That's to contact the schools. They have a parent survey about walking and biking to school that we can ask the schools to do. They have a survey on how the kids get to school in both English and Spanish. And that would be like, they do it for like 2 weeks in a row, 2 days, 2 weeks, and they tally up how many kids are walking, how many are riding a bike, how many are being dropped off. So I sent a letter to principal at Kennedy. He hasn't replied yet. It was first week of school. I imagine he was pretty busy. But I figured, you know, if we could sneak it in as part of the first week of school activities, we could actually maybe even get the parents to take a survey as part of that first week, but still working on that. Any other conversation on House Bill 2017?
I don't know if you all read the information I forwarded about ODOT's blurb. They got like $100 million worth of proposed projects for this program, so they're going to have to do a lot of weeding out. And they've established their advisory committee, which is folks from lots of different interests and different parts of the state. But it includes Steve Dickey, who's Chariot's director of transportation planning, which I think is a good thing. So it's a local person interested in good transportation, safe transportation. So, and he knows these areas firsthand, so that's a good thing, I hope.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Okay, so we're currently working on the worksheets that will be used to fill in the blanks when we actually do the application. The application is a interactive online 7-page application. You have to fill out the first page before you can get to page 2. So I haven't really seen page 2 yet, but I know there's at least 7 pages. So we'll get the worksheets done and hopefully have all of the answers that we need when we do the application. Any discussion, any questions, comments from the audience? Okay, thank you. Yeah, we are working on it, and we want to, we're still pursuing both projects. City Council gave us a go-ahead to move move forward on both projects.
I guess this is sort of related, so maybe I'll mention that part of what I was doing also, even while I was out of town. Had an extended email conversation with Carol Dorfler about the possibility of pursuing the action plan process at Cummings School. The action plan form that comes with the Safe Routes to School program was kind of, I think, used as a way of presenting these two projects to the city council, but the action plan process itself is really a lot more comprehensive and involves some of the things that Wayne was just talking about, getting the surveys from the parents and from the students, and looking at all the different types of solutions around a school, whether they be involving construction or regulation, education, encouragement, enforcement actions, and then kind of determining which of those can be most effective based on what the parents have indicated their willingness, and considering the neighbors, considering the parents and their attitudes, and considering, of course, the safety of the children. So that is kind of a very structured, organized type of process that we can do, but we probably can't do it in time before October 12th at either of these locations. In the spring, the Safe Routes at School program will be offering an opportunity to compete for funds for these non-construction or non-infrastructure types of Safe Routes activities. So that would be perhaps our opportunity to add to, or to kind of augment or support, or look at some of these other solutions around both schools, and we could submit for some funding to kind of have coordinate the action plan and do that for the schools.
Okay, thank you, Pat.
I'll just ask one question, go back to the surveys. So have you talked to Magda about the surveys?
No, I have not. I've only contacted Kennedy so far about the surveys. I've got samples here, if you'd like to see what they look like. They're tally sheets. It says Safe Routes to Schools, arrival and departure tally sheets is one of them.
Are you aware that if they've been done before at Cummings?
They've got them in Spanish and English. They've got, we can pass these around if we want to.
I'll just contact her.
So for Cummings, we have not asked them about surveys yet. It's something that we can do. It's an optional thing. It's not required, but it might be helpful. We get a few more extra points when they do the evaluation if we've done that research.
You might want to speak with Magda. She's the principal.
Yeah, I've met her.
Yes. And she'll be at our neighborhood association. About that.
Sure, if you want to do that.
She's got a brand new school, brand new principal there. I could pass it in front of her and just.
Okay. Let me give these to you. Okay, I'll put them right here for now. Don't forget them.
We'll have to be leaving early.
Okay, yeah.
Do it to pass it down.
Otherwise, I would.
Okay, any other discussion on House Bill 2017? Both projects are currently moving forward. We're going to put together the worksheet so we can fill out the application online. Let's move on to item number 5. There's an item mentioned Mandarin between Eve Court and Cherry, parking narrow travel lane. I believe last month we had a gentleman come and talk to us about that. He said there was, correct me if I'm wrong, was this the one about parking near an apartment complex?
That's right.
Okay. And
Has anybody else gone down and looked at it?
I go by there all
You
the
go by
time.
there all the time. For the record, the roads, forget, I don't know the width of it, but it's plenty wide, even in the corner. But what happens as you approach a corner, people turning to the left cut the corner a little, because they don't know where the right side of their car is,
Yeah.
which might make it narrow. But I was driving around this week, we've got hundreds of places exactly like that, where people take turns. I mean, they're coming towards each other at night, and if you can't see, or even if you can see and you're a little cautious, one person slows down and pulls up, or holds still and let the other person go by. I don't see it as a major problem. People have just started accelerating off of Cherry, so they're not going, it's not like they hit it doing 45 and have to slow down or anything. It's, I tried it both ways, then tried it at night. Of course, I never could get somebody coming towards me. I could see somebody coming towards me where I would slow down. But other than that, I think it's my opinion would be it's a non-issue. I mean, I feel sorry for the people my age, that when you get over 75, lights really bother you at night, and for whatever, physical reasons. So oncoming headlights are brighter than they really are for the majority of the population. So you just deal with it. I mean, don't go out at night or whatever. And as the rest of you guys get older, you're gonna see the same thing. Oh, what are these people doing with these huge bright lights? And they're not. So I would suggest that we sympathize with the person who has an issue, but that we not do anything. And Debbie, is there a way of making a motion about this? I hate to just drop it. And it's really not worth bringing up. I don't think it's worth bringing up. I don't know what the rest of you think. Is there a way of making a motion that we can either agree with or disagree with? My first thought is I make a motion that we do not send this to the city council
That you don't take any action.
and don't take any action on it.
I think that would be the kind of motion that you would make.
Okay, so I'll move that we don't take any motion on this action, on this issue.
So what,
Regarding the curve on Mandarin,
were they asking to lower the speed limit? Was that what the request was? No? I'm not familiar
I
enough with
think
it.
they wanted to limit the parking on the sides, when residential permits or something to limit the amount of parking on the sides.
Yeah, they
But I agree with David that there's so many places in Keizer, any town that's like this. I mean, if you start here doing it, then, then the next neighborhood wants it, then the next neighborhood wants it. And I just don't, I think the solution is to slow down and be cautious.
We don't have a second on that yet, do we?
Not yet, no. If I could just add something before we do a couple of things, actually. One, I agree that slowing the cars down is the key, and by taking cars off the road, you're actually making people, giving the opportunity to drive faster. So my only request of the motion would be not to do nothing, but to actually encourage the city in part of their transportation plan to put in devices, measures within any repavement plan or anything that might slow cars down. Say bulb outs at the corners.
Speed bumps.
Well, I don't know about a speed bump on that street. It's still, I think it's a little too busy of a street for that. But even at the, I think it's Brooks, the next street at that corner. Do something there that narrows the street down. Would you go further down on that street? I don't think it's Mandarin anymore. Once you get to the next street, I think it has a different name. We did some work on the street. The city did some work on the street. That could have been a great time to put in bulb outs, but we didn't do it. So I don't know how we would amend the motion.
the motion is to take no action.
Yeah.
No action at this time.
Yeah.
This time, it'll always come up, these have come up, I've been on the committee I don't know, I think it's been 14 years. It seems like I've heard all of these issues once or twice before, if not this specific street, somewhere else.
Yeah.
And people have complaints. And there weren't, I feel sorry for them. If if you don't fix it, but you can't fix some things.
Well, I'll
So-
second the motion.
His motion?
Well, then it can be discussion.
Yeah,
right?
we can discuss it.
It wasn't seconded yet, so
Yeah.
Right.
actually technically you shouldn't have even had any.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Pat seconded, okay.
Okay, so currently there's a motion and a second to not take any action on Manbrin between Eve and Cherry.
Discussion.
And
I'm giving you my. It's actually one of the better streets.
I mean, I know I've been by there, I haven't been by there just recently, but just from what you, everybody else has described, it seems like something that's not, that doesn't need an immediate action right now.
It's did you ever drive on Park Meadow? It's identical to Park Meadow at the Wheatland end of the road. There's a curve right by the apartments. There's always people parked on the street. It's exactly the same situation. I think the streets are probably exactly the same way. It's probably the same problem.
Yeah, I actually drove down there this evening on my way here, and there were some cars parked on the side, but it wasn't difficult to drive through the middle. And because it curves, it does kind of slow people down.
There may be even just striping or something at some point.
Well,
to allow
yeah,
people-
because there are stripes. And I think too that people have an attitude that if I don't have 5 feet at least on each side of my car, I've got to stop, or I'll have to drive in the center of the road. So people like, and I understand as you get older, maybe you get a little more uncomfortable with that, but it's okay to slow down and go closer to the cars as you're going crossways. But that's one of my pet peeves.
Okay, so
Call for
let's
the vote.
call for a vote. And it's, the motion is to do nothing right now on, regarding Manbrin. All in favor of that? Say aye. And all opposed, say nay. Okay, so we'll be doing nothing currently on Manbrin. Item number 6, the west end of Ivy. We had a speaker last time from the audience. Said there was resident parking. He was suggesting a parking permit for the apartment complex there.
And where is Ivy?
It's between,
Oh,
go ahead.
I was just saying, it's not very far from here, from the Manbrin.
No, it's around the corner.
Yeah.
yeah.
But Ivy's, is it 2 blocks long? Two blocks long, dead end. It's a Thurman is the cross street, and then you go west. From there west is a dead end. Does anybody live near there? Can explain something to me? Like, who owns the swimming pool? Who owns the tennis court? Who owns the park? That's okay. I'm pretty sure the apartments own all that. And at the end of Ivy, there's a fence with a gate in it that doesn't have a gate, okay? And I guess it's a little teeny parking lot, and they put their garbage cans out there from the apartment building. It's a ways, like from here to the front of this building, from the fence to the apartment building across the park. Has anybody else been there?
But what do they want?
Now, as you come out of, I was there Saturday and Monday. There were no cars parked anywhere on Ivy, so I don't know. That's one issue. I don't know, they think people, and they may be right, people may be coming out of the apartment building to Ivy, which I would, if I lived there, I would never go that way. I'd go park out on Manbrin or whatever goes to the other side, the access where the roads are into their parking lot. So you have to walk across the grass. There might be a path there, but walk quite a ways to get to Ivy Street. The 2 first houses on the left and right, north and south of Ivy, have room to park 4 cars each in their driveway. So I'm not sure where the gentleman came from. But if he has more than 4 cars, then he needs to park in the street. The next 2 houses down have all 2-car garages and wide, whatever you call that, wide driveways. So there's no problem there parking 2 cars in each of those, and that's pretty much the rest of the block. And there's nothing inhibiting, there's no shrubbery near the sidewalks. It's a nice, really clean, nice neighborhood. When I went there was no garbage on the streets anywhere. That doesn't mean there isn't. My wife and I got in an argument over this. You don't, it's about our house too, but we don't own the curb in front of our house. And since somebody wasn't parked there 2 times I was there, I don't, to say that someone's always parked in front of my house, I don't think it's quite true. They're not always there anyway. So, I couldn't find any reason except you don't like somebody parking in front of your house. And there may be somebody parking there. I'm not sure how it's interfering with you if it is. I don't think there's a lot. I mean, a lot of people parking down there. It's not a very convenient place to park. Yeah.
We recognize Kim Freeman from the audience.
Hi, I'm Kim Freeman at Keizer City Council, and I actually sent in an email to the Traffic Safety Bikeways Committee because of my outreach during National Night Out. Along with myself and GT, we visited the neighborhood on Ivy, and it was the neighbors who have indicated that from where the fence is of the apartments, probably halfway east of the street, there are a lot of residents who live in that apartment complex that are parking on the street. They're blocking the mailboxes. They've tried to work with the people parking there. They've tried to work with the apartment manager to explain that, you know, it's residential. Chief and I talked with them, and we explained that they needed to come to the traffic committee, and then it was actually Chief's idea to see if maybe there's possibly a residential parking permit, maybe. And again, these were just discussion items because the neighbors have said that people have been very unruly on the street. It's causing some issues. And so now I didn't fully read all the minutes from last time for the gentleman that came, but we did, you know, we're trying to encourage neighbors to come to appropriate committees to share their concerns. So, but I did pass it along because it's something that I heard when I was out, so. And there may not be anything that can be done, but.
I've got an email, and it is from you. I wanted to share some traffic information I heard from my neighborhood during National Night Out. You just told us that. I know we have talked about traffic and speed on Verda from Dearborn east to the Parkway. Can we put speed control in that area? We talked about the mailboxes on Verda at the curve going east and people on the west side having to cross the street to get their mail. And cars go fast and they do not stop to let people cross. I know they do not have to. I know there's nothing we can do to correct this, but wanted to pass it along as it is hard on the neighbors. Could there be a stop sign at Ivy Way? This was a request of the neighbors. At the dead end of Ivy Way, it was asked if we could do something about the residents from the apartments that park on Ivy. They have tried to work with the property management company of the apartments, but they have not had any luck. Maybe we could put up a residential parking sign. Okay, does that sound familiar? Marlene?
If they're blocking the mailbox, if you go to the post office will put down on there that do not block the mailbox. And then I think if they do that and then they continue to park in front of the mailbox, then you can call the non-emergency number of the police. And hopefully maybe, you know, you can remedy it that way. So once they're told they can't do that, or they see the signs that they can't do that, then that may be one of the solutions. But other than that, you can't stop them from parking on the street. The street's a public way. Only in front of their driveways or in front of the mailboxes or something. So, but that's my suggestion. The post office will do that if you talk to them.
So did they elaborate when they said that they've talked to the management company and they've had no luck? Did they say what they've tried to do, and was the attitude with the management company like, we can't do anything, or we don't care, or?
All of the above.
All of the above, okay.
you're right, David, that street is very nice.
And it's very nice.
It's a lot like the Gebser neighborhood. The houses sit back. They do have big driveways. Lots of cars can park in their driveway, along in the garage. So,
If I lived in the apartment building, I could make you a good argument why I'm a resident of Ivy Way. 'Cause you're
Sure,
not gonna ban parking.
yeah.
I understand why people do that, because it happens all the time. Nobody wants strangers parking in front of their house. And if once in a while they're unruly or dirty or drop their coffee cup, I don't like it. But outside of, you've talked to them, I don't see a solution to it, unfortunately.
I'd just be interested to know more about, does Keizer issue residential parking permits? I didn't think so. There isn't such a thing. That's not an option anyway.
About them. We've had discussions about them in certain areas.
Put no parking on. But I don't think that's what they want. I don't think they want no parking. They want no
Only
other,
their friends
other
to
people
park.
parking. Yeah.
Just certain people.
I understand it. I've felt that way, but I don't know what we're gonna do. Anybody got an idea to what to do? Otherwise, we need to drop this one too.
Well, hasn't this been an issue for the McNary kids parking on, for time immemorial? And no one's come up with a solution on that yet.
Anybody got a motion?
Well, I'll make the motion then. I make a motion that we do not institute a residential parking permit.
Well, how about
Program.
we take no action on this issue?
Okay, we take no action. Issue up for the west end of Ivy.
Second,
Okay, we've got that motion up and seconded. All in favor of taking no action on Ivy as far as putting up a residential parking sign, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. The motion to do nothing passed. We're not getting much done tonight.
Yeah,
well, actually, we are.
Well, the
don't want
suggestion that Marlene said could be conveyed to the interested citizen.
Somebody know the,
Yes, because the postman, if those cars continually park there, he's not going to deliver their mail.
no.
Right.
So that's why they have a good argument against that, to try to do that. That's the only thing I can say that might be at least some resolution for them, but
And they're not parking there, like, somebody in my street parked their deadbeat car out there and didn't move it for 6 months. It's not that, because when I went there was no cars at all, so.
can I ask
Yeah,
Councilor
Michael?
Freeman? So I know it's not on here, but you did have number 3 as a stop sign.
Oh, right.
Is that at Thorman and Ivy? Is that?
Thorman and Ivy.
Stop. It was one of their requests. And again, I'm just sharing information, and I've encouraged them to come here and talk about it as well.
Did you say three-way? It's a two-way stop already.
Two-way, okay.
You want four-way stop? You want cars coming both way on, is that Thurman?
Is that Thurman?
Thorman and Ivy. It's stopped on Ivy, both sides of those two. So,
I'm not requesting.
okay,
No.
what
It's
they
what
thought,
the are asking for. I am just sharing the information, and again, I've asked them to come here, but I've also explained you don't just get to have a stop sign because you want a stop sign.
Yeah, in that particular location, I think that Thurman, that's a route that we could sometime develop as a kind of a family-friendly bikeway route, in which case it'd be nice to just do traffic calming measures and maybe even get rid of a couple stop signs on that route, and rather than adding them.
Do
Yeah.
many roundabouts.
Okay, let's move on to item 7 on our agenda.
so we're not doing anything about the stop, okay, no way.
Yeah, that wasn't on the list.
Either,
Okay. Number 7, we have the item is Verta Lane Speed Reduction Request. Does anyone know who put that request in? I don't recall talking about that last time.
yes, I do.
Which section, which segment of Verda?
I'm looking for my, I don't have it. It's the section from Dearborn to the Parkway.
So Chair Fry, that was in my email as well.
Yes. And they made a presentation about, let's see if, Kim, you were there also, but anybody else? Basically, there's some people that live along Verda, at the north, between Dearborn and, I don't know, the next 6 blocks or something. And, but not way down towards the Parkway, more up the north end. There's a slight curve there. They're having trouble getting to their mailbox. The speed limit's 35, correct, Trevor? All right, it's 35. There's a stop sign at Dearborn, and the next stop is the signal at the Parkway. Their complaint was the cars, there's too many cars and they're going too fast to be, one of the things they didn't like was they couldn't get across the street to their mailbox, which is on the east side of the street. So I'm assuming they live on the, I don't know. west-
No one can hear you.
Oh.
Are you sure, mic on?
Nope, there we go, sorry. I went and sat up there for 30, 40 minutes at 4:30 in the afternoon, Monday, to see how the traffic was. It kind of reminds me of, I live up on Wheatland, so it kind of reminded me of it. One, the volume's about the same. You get, based on the signal at the Parkway, you'll get 8, 9, 10 cars at the most, right in a row. I didn't see anybody speeding. My guess was they were doing under 35, but that's just a guess. There weren't, nobody barreling along. The people coming the other direction from Dearborn were going rather slow. One is you've been at a dead stop, you take off, it's obviously a neighborhood. There's a kind of a dip in the road, so your visibility isn't really good. Then you hit the corner, your visibility again isn't real good. It's fine, I mean, and then you hit the straight shot. So I got out and wanted to see how long it took me. You know how long I had to wait once with a lot of traffic? Was almost 2 minutes. 2 minutes seems like ages. 2 minutes is how long if you miss the left turn lane on Chamawa and River Road, and you're in the left turn lane, you just got there and missed it. It's 2 minutes until it turns green again. 2.5 minutes, something like that. Not long at all. And I'm an impatient person, so waiting to cross back and forth across Verda, it seemed like a long time. But it wasn't, and it was 4:30, which I thought was heavy traffic. Should have been heavy traffic. If I was in a walker, I wouldn't do it. That's,
And you did that after school started?
yeah,
School back in
this
session?
last Monday.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, 4:30, though, the school people, I think, are gone, so. That's part of it. Now, I have something that takes a moment longer about Verda, and people who live on Verda aren't going to like this. The long-range transportation plan for Keizer, Mid-Willamette Valley, it's been adopted by the school board, everybody else. Is Verda supposed to be 3 lanes with a left turn lane, bike lanes, and sidewalks? That's the accepted long-range plan. That, Mike, I asked you to look that up. Can we do 3 lanes, bike lanes, and sidewalks in 60 feet? Because I think that's the easement on Verda. Is that enough to do all that?
2 lanes, 2 bike lanes.
The easement goes from 40 feet, the right of way goes from 40 feet at Dearborn, and then it goes up to 60 feet when you get closer to the Parkway. So
Yeah.
we have 40 feet, 50 feet, 60 feet.
Oh, okay.
Kind of changes here and those. So if you do what you're saying, you probably have to acquire some at some point.
Yeah. So, I've worked with somebody else on this in a different part of in Keizer. People don't realize that their yards don't extend to the pavement. I would suspect, right where that, as you come out of that corner, there's probably 15 feet of your front yard from the gravel towards your house that isn't yours. That's probably part of the easement. Road's probably 20, 25 feet wide, the asphalt. You got a 50-foot easement, another 12 some odd feet, quite enough to put sidewalks and bike lane in, or at least a bike lane. The bike lane's a high priority to put in. Verda, the city council, supported that when they got in a big discussion about the Croc Center, how we were gonna make Verda the access for bicycles, pedestrians, and some traffic to get to the Croc Center, although Salem hasn't figured out how we're gonna get there once we cross the parkway. And the other one was Cherry, so those plans are kind of in place, they can be changed. So 35 is a really reasonable speed limit. Try
believe-
crossing weed limits, 40.
I believe we've got some numbers on Verda. Is that what this spreadsheet is, Debbie? This? Trevor?
Yes.
This spreadsheet? Okay.
Yes, so Mikey and I worked together here a few years ago in 2016 in October and did a speed survey out on Verda Lane, south of Shamawa, in a 4,400 block of that street, and had a number of vehicles go through there during a 1-week time frame. And it was during school time, so we had a larger volume of traffic. We had a little over 63,000 vehicles captured in the study. The average speed for southbound vehicles going towards the parkway was 32.7 miles per hour, or 2.3 miles below the posted speed limit. Average speed going the opposite direction northbound was 31.2 or 3.8 miles below the posted speed limit. 85th percentile for southbound vehicles was 38 miles per hour, or 3 miles over the speed limit, and 85th percentile for northbound vehicles was 35.8 miles per hour. So there was some discussions with Councilor Freeman and Chief Teague and the neighbors. I was CC'd or copied in on some emails between Chief Teague and some of the neighbors that are out in that area. And there was a email sent to Ms. Lockhart, stating that they disagreed with our assessment that speeding was not an issue. So the decision was made to do another speed survey. I went out there the week of August 28th through September 4th, so it was a 1-week time frame. We did the vehicle count. We had 15 vehicles shy of 35,000 vehicles total. Average speed was 32.8 miles per hour. We had 72% of the total of the vehicles were under the speed limit. 28% were over the speed limit. We had a minimum speed of 10 miles per hour, a maximum speed of 100, which was calculated. I am working with the vendor now to determine whether or not, because we had, in the raw data, we had 11 vehicles that registered at 100 miles per hour. And the counting unit was in the same location, just south of 18th, where it ties in to Verda Lane. And I suppose if you're on a motorcycle, you potentially could get up to that speed. But the very first 100 mile an hour speed that was captured was on August 28th at 2:55 p.m. So chances are that there's an anomaly. There's something in there. So the average speed limit for those 35,000 vehicles was 38.5 miles per hour. So 3.5 miles over the speed limit. As you continue through this, you'll see the survey description where it was located at, and then you have the pie chart where it shows the 72 and the 28% respectively. When you go down underneath the pie chart, there's a line that says vehicles over the excessive speed count. And the excessive speed threshold we listed it as 55 miles an hour, or 20 miles over the speed limit. So out of those 35,000 vehicles, there were only 61, and that's to include those 11 that were listed at 100 miles an hour. 61 vehicles out of 35,000 that were 20 miles an hour over the speed limit, or 1/1000th of a percentage point in the total. As you go to the next page, you'll see the breakdown, and now this is not daily breakdown, this is just by hour combined for the entire week. You'll notice my handwritten notes at the very bottom, starting with 56 to 60 miles per hour, and then going to the right side of the page, you'll see my counts. I was looking for those speeds in excess of 55 miles an hour. In excess of 55 or 20 over the speed limit. I accounted for 45 of those vehicles. The other 16, 11 of which were listed at 100 miles an hour in the raw data, are not accounted for in that 86 plus mile an hour column. I have an email with it's a 2-page email to the vendor explaining some of the circumstances with the data and trying to get an explanation for why that's not appearing, at least in that column. So there are 61 vehicles that clearly, if those 100-mile-an-hour speeds are accurate, less than 1 percentage point of all the vehicles total, which is very difficult for the traffic safety team to, and when we're looking at this combined over the period of a week, how do we send out our resources to capture that, maybe that 1 or 2 vehicles that are coming and going at those excessive speeds? So one of the things that was being complained about is the location of where the first speed study was done by Public Works. And when I looked at that, it made complete sense to me that they put it where they did, and I ended up putting it right where they placed it as well. And if you look at I added 2 photographs here. The first photograph shows a red line from the Salem Parkway going to about the curve that Mr. Dempster was talking about, and that's about 2,000 feet from Salem Parkway to that curve, and then from that curve continuing northbound to Dearborn, it's 1,500 feet. When you break down that even further, you'll see on the last page, from the curve going to the 4,400 block of Verta Lane, which is just I placed it one house south of 18th, where 18th ties into Verta on the west side of the roadway. That's 500 feet. And then there's an additional 500 feet from that counting unit to Alder Drive. That's dead center, as close as I could possibly put it, because one of the complaints in the email is that, well, cars had to slow down for from Alder. Cars had to slow down to turn on to 18th. So they wanted it placed somewhere else. Well, when I'm looking at this, and I suspect that Mike and Public Works did the same thing, well, if we place that near the curve, cars have to slow down for the curve. So the data is going to be skewed.
Yeah.
If you placed it further north, they're going to have to slow down for Chelan, Wiesner, and Dearborn for the stop sign. So when looking at this, I picked the straightest straightaway that we had, the longest straightaway where people could get up to the highest possible speeds possible. And again, the data speaks for itself. I rest on my initial assessment from 2 years ago that this is not a speeding issue. The folks also mentioned that, well, we need to do this when school's not in session, because when school's in session, it skews the numbers because cars are going slower because of the active school zones and just the sheer volume. Now, I will say that I was a little surprised today when I was looking at these numbers. I was drawing from 2016 and then looking at this, the current one. There's a difference of about 30,000 vehicles throughout a 7-day period when school's in session and when school is out of session. Keeping in mind that maybe those are coming and going, so cut that in half, that's still an additional 15,000 vehicles traversing that roadway. When you have that amount of sheer volume, I don't see how you can get to be going and speeding at 100 miles an hour at 2:55 p.m. So the data is there. I have it in raw format. I've listed it out here in different formats that those that learn differently can see the different ways that it's been collected. One of the questions I had, and folks smarter than me had a difficult time trying to explain it, and I Googled it, but the standard deviation of 12 miles per hour basically is a statistical mathematical formula, and it made my brain hurt. And I mean, even the vendor themselves, Stalker, could not give me an explanation of how I could put that in layman's terms to.
I can. What was say your average speed was 34 miles an hour. If the standard deviation was 12, that's huge. That means that
Some people are going 12.
most of the people, whatever, 70% of the people are going somewhere between 12 miles an hour, somewhere between 23 miles an hour and 45. That's almost everybody. But your data shows it. The standard deviation just gives you a broad range where almost everybody is.
So the 10-mile pace, so we have a a percentage of folks within the 10-mile
Yeah,
pace
you-
count. We had 68% of those folks, so 24,000 of the 35,000 were going between 28 miles per hour and 37 miles per hour.
But that's,
That seems.
you couldn't make up numbers any better than that.
So,
I mean,
I mean, I just guess have a question about the excessive speed numbers. I mean, in that stretch right there, I mean, I guess I can see that somebody might go 55, I guess, but you've got a lot of people up there going 70, 80 and stuff like that. I know you didn't believe the 100 mile an hour, but it seems like even anything above 60 would be kind of unbelievable in that stretch of road.
So keeping in mind that there were, let's see, did you have one date and time, or one day, one time frame? And so let's just pick,
Oh, I was just looking at your handwritten numbers at the bottom.
oh, yes. So if you look at the very top line, 81 to 85 miles per hour between midnight and 1 a.m., that could have happened any day of the week.
Okay.
I can see that
Yeah.
when there's no cars out on the roadway. But we had 8 of those total. And keeping in mind, I can break those down by hour and by day of the week. It'll take some work to do so because it's not how the survey was set up. But I suspect those are going to be those speeds that are early morning hours, Sunday morning, Monday morning, when we don't expect a lot of traffic.
Yeah.
The other thing that we cannot account for is the police officers running code to calls and using Verda, using the Parkway, using these other streets. I'm certainly not justifying or even suggesting that an 80 mile an hour speed by the police on even an emergency call is good business.
Yeah,
But I can't weed those out.
yeah.
So there's lots of data. I mean, 35,000 cars in a week is a lot. And again, the data speaks for itself. It's showing that for the most part, cars are going below the average speed limit. The 85th percentile for those 35,000 that were collected was 37 miles per hour. I will tell you that as a traffic sergeant, as a motor officer in the past and currently, and I suspect this is going to be the same in the future, even though the law says I can write a citation for 26 miles an hour in a 25 mile an hour speed zone, that's not reasonable. I think the citizens would be very upset. I think the chief and my administration would be disappointed in my decision making. And so we typically don't stop cars unless they're doing 10 miles an hour over the speed limit. So when you're looking at the data, we really have to get rid of, where can we concentrate our efforts and where are those vehicles traveling at least 10 miles an hour and over, and what time of the day. Our motors, because they're so vulnerable as it is being on a motorcycle, only work during daylight hours, Monday through Friday, where there's more of a volume, more of a need for that, but 7 to 5, and if these vehicles are traveling at that rate at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, it's almost near impossible. It's just going to be a luck of the draw if an officer happens to be sitting in that area at the exact same time a car goes by at 80 miles an hour.
It's also probably not the time that somebody's crossing the street to get their mail.
Correct, correct. And when you're looking at that narrow street and that curves, when you are standing in a bicycle lane, and I know most of you folks ride bikes, even if you're hugging the curb in your bicycle lane and a truck is hugging the bicycle white line, it's unnerving even though they're doing the speed limit. It's a big vehicle. It feels like they're going faster than what they are. It's dangerous, but in reality, everything's lawful. And when you've got somebody that's not on a bicycle and they're actually walking and they're standing, I suspect, close to that white line to show intent to cross the street in hopes that they would stop, which technically is illegal. You can't stop traffic unless you're at an intersection, whether it's marked or unmarked. It probably does feel like those vehicles are traveling at a high rate of speed, when in reality, some of them are, yes, but the majority of them, they are not.
I understand the difficulty of enforcement if you lower the speed limit to like 25 or 30 or something, but I would like to note that 34%, a third of the folks were going over the speed limit. And when you're, like you said, on a bicycle or walking, and even 35 seems fast. When I walk on River Road, on a sidewalk with a curb, and the car's coming at me at 35 miles an hour, it's scary. And if they're averaging, and if a lot of them are order at 40 or 45, that's even more scary. And I would advocate for lowering the speed limit, at least until the area is improved, so it's got sidewalks and curbs. But I'm not quite sure, and this is kind of a side issue, what control the city has over speed limits. I mean, does Keizer have control over speed limits on city streets? But that's what I thought. That's, because I'm going to talk about that issue later.
Currently
But
35.
I would encourage us to think about
Yes.
lower, if we do have the ability to do that, to lower the speed limit, because if you admit that you're not even going to cite people until they're 10 over, if you put it down to 25, they're going to be going 35 anyway. And that's a scary speed when you're on foot or on a bike.
Michael?
It does point out the cities need to improve VERDA. But
Michael?
sidewalks would help. for bikes.
I
Well, yeah.
appreciate everything that you've shown here, and I do see that the speeds are not so gross, or a large enough number of the drivers are not grossly speeding. But as Kathy was saying, you know, it's how the people perceive it when they're on bikes and walking, trying to cross the street to go get their mail, which leads to my worry that even if we do put sidewalks and bike lanes and all that, but we're widening the street, we're not really protecting those people outside their cars.
When you improve the roadway, you're going to increase the distance between the curbs. Your speeds are going to inevitably go up. And it's been proven time and time again. When they improved Dearborn, and when I applied for the speed grant this past year for this fiscal year, my whole idea and goal was to get folks to slow down on Dearborn, because when they put in the sidewalks and they improved it, much like they did with Shamawa west of River Road, speed limits started to creep up because you have this perception that the roads are wider, when in reality they're really not that much wider. But it's cleaner, it looks better, it looks wider, so cars are going to go higher speeds. Unfortunately, we had the bridge put in, and people just stayed off of Dearborn, so it kind of defeated my purpose there, but it did allow me to go to different spots in town. If you look at Lock Haven, I wrote numerous citations, so much so that I've got a little Facebook page about the cop that sits on Lock Haven, and how this individual was issued a citation, and how his video of me sitting doing the speed enforcement. And Lock Haven's a prime example. I was writing citations at 50 miles an hour on Lock Haven, which is 35 miles an hour. I don't have that the sheer volume on VERDA during the time frames that the motor teams are working that I do on Lock Haven. And I suspect you're correct, when you increase or when you improve that area, those speeds may even creep up even higher.
Go ahead, Pat.
Well, you've mentioned that the average speed, and I think briefly you mentioned the 85th percentile speed. Which one do you think is a better indicator or decision factor?
85th percentile.
Oh,
Because that takes into consider, well, the average speed takes all 35,000 vehicles. Takes out, encompasses the 10 mile an hour folks and the
speeders.
100 mile an hour folks. I think the 85th percentile is a little bit more realistic. And actually, if you look at the average speed over the limit, it averages out where we're at over 35 miles an hour. That's even probably a truer thing to look at, and that's 38.5 miles an hour. So the average speed, if you look at the 85th percentile, 85% of them are going 37 miles per hour. So we're in the ballpark there. But again, some of those folks that are driving rather slowly, they were just coming onto or off the street from their driveways
Yeah.
or side streets, you've got those 10, 12, 15 mile an hour speed zones. So that's going to take that average speed down because there's more of them than
Yeah.
the 61 or that 1/1000th of a percent that
Yeah.
are going, the 20 miles over. There's many more going a lot slower. So I would rely more so on the 38 and a half or the 37 miles an
Yeah.
hour.
And so even if you put a different sign up there that says 30 instead of 35, the driving conditions haven't changed, so it seems like that'll change some behaviors, but probably your 85th percentile number probably won't change a lot, right?
That probably won't change, but the revenue to the city, if the motor team sits out there, will change because now our threshold gets lowered.
Well, yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say, we actually have talked about this at city council several times, and Public Works and everybody agreed, there's just no way we can really lower that speed limit because that is considered a feeder into the other roads, and because of that, they can't lower the speed limit down. So that's kind of why I think we wanted him to do this too, because in actuality, 75% of the people are going under the speed limit. It's that 25% that are going those overs that we really need to worry about. So, but we've already discussed it, and there's not anything that we're going to do about it because it is a feeder road. So just wanted to let you know now, because I know you're talking about it, and you might as well just, like, we've already discussed it.
Just for the other side. I have a short temper, I guess, not temper, but irked level. And so somebody driving 30 and a 35 irks me. So all those people who are driving under the speed limit bother me as much as they bother the people who think they're driving over 35. And there's a lot of them, and I don't know if really they cause any problems or not, but just that is, I think it's a feeder. Mike, do you remember if it's I think it's a feeder street?
Collector.
Minor arterial.
Minor arterial. So, I mean, if you look at the bigger picture, you've got to get out of Keizer. People are going south. They want, you're limited. You got Verda, Cherry, River Road, pretty much. Freeway, I guess you want to go up that way, go backwards. But now the other one is, the plan is, this road's going to get nothing but more crowded because we're developing along Chemawa, and the plan is to develop Verda from the Chemawa to Lock Haven, and we're going to be putting in more and more traffic. So I guess you need to get accustomed to it because I don't know, 35 seemed a reasonable speed to me, and I'm cautious, I think. Maybe not.
Michael, you have a comment?
Well, first, I'm one of the people that irks you because I do the 30 up. So the fact that it's a feeder, or that's a city designation, right?
Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments,
They determined that this street.
well, they didn't determine it, we determined it with them. So it's not a arbitrary little thing.
Now, this is a Bill Lawyer question. I know we had this discussion. I know we probably even asked those questions. And it is a minor arterial, and that's why one of the reasons why they said they could not lower the speed limit. But they didn't tell me who couldn't, right? So this is a great question, though, for Mike to go back and ask Bill Lawyer, because he'll have the answer to that question just like that.
Mike might already know.
Oh, but he might already know.
What it would take is a request to the Oregon State Speed Control Board, and then we would show them the work that Trevor's done on the speed counts and all that data, and then we would submit that, and they would review it, and then they would come back to us and say, approve or disapprove.
So is there anything that would prohibit us from, when the time comes for the redesign, for designing it for 30 miles an hour, but maintaining a 35 mile an hour limit? So we're actually psychologically making people go slower, but we haven't changed the speed limit.
Food for thought, but that's, maybe we could capture that idea, Debbie? Just,
Has anybody got an idea what we can say to these people that's going to make them happy?
We've already not said the right thing twice.
So
Well, I
that's,
haven't.
it's been directed to me to work with those folks to explain them the data. Myself and Sergeant Leday, in one of my notes, that Sergeant Leday is taking over the unit here most likely in and around November timeframe. Because he will inherit this problem, if you will. We were to go speak with the folks over there, show them the data, and explain to them the resources and what the issues are or aren't. I suspect that we will get a very similar response from them, that they disagree with the data, and that there's enough numbers on the higher end to justify lowering the speed. And unfortunately, my understanding of how Public Works and how the entities that are peripheral lower that speed is through, I mean, some of it is already the work that's already been done back in 2016 and then this recent one, and it just doesn't look like there's a speeding problem currently. So I'll be handling that portion of getting with the folks in the neighborhoods. There's Tim Gray, and I think he was the one that showed up, I believe, last time to bring this to our attention again. And then there's a doctor, it's I think an Indian name, Pradam something.
Yes, and he has come forward to the city council just recently, actually, probably, I think within the last 3 or 4 months, he came forward.
Well, was the original issue brought forward specifically around speeding, or was it around the fact that these people are having difficulty crossing the street and back?
It is both.
Because
they
it
can't
seems
get across-
like, because my question then would be, if it's more a question of the volume or the platoons of cars and the timing of them, then my question would be with the post office, at what point, you've got the data here for what the traffic volume is it high enough that they should be delivering mail on both sides of the street instead of only on one side?
If I may?
Debbie, go ahead.
I addressed that with them. I got a phone number for them and contact information.
You got a sarcastic
Their
remark.
response was in what I sent you.
Yes.
It suggested that maybe they just ask all their friends to move their houses to the other side of the street, and that the schools be moved to their side of the street. It says, we are amazed at your suggestion that we request the post office to move mailboxes so that we don't have to cross Berta to get our mail. Apparently you do not know how difficult or how expensive that would be. Besides having to pay for moving mailboxes, it would double the work of the mailman to deliver the mail on both sides. Going by your reasoning, we would be also recommended that our neighbors move to our side of the street so we don't have to cross the road to visit them. In the same vein, would you recommend the elementary and middle schools in the area should also be moved so children who cross the street wouldn't have to?
And on and on.
Yes.
I
And I just said, okay, never mind.
ride my bike a lot, and I see people crossing streets to get to their mailbox out in the country, and not a lot of traffic, but it might be on a road that has high speeds on it.
High speed but less volume.
High speed, less volume. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm sorry you live on the wrong side of the street. Just my own private thought. I'm sorry you don't have your mailbox on your side of the street. But,
Were those all individual mailboxes? Well, I live where it's been developed a lot, and so we only have 2 mailboxes for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 blocks. So I have to walk 2.5 blocks to get to my mailbox, and then the people, but which is probably the farthest of anybody in the neighborhood. And I think you could broach that with the post office and say, yeah, we'll put 1 mailbox on the west side of the street, and everybody 4 blocks on either side of it will use it. They put in one of those complexes. And you can put another one on the right side. The post office would probably be happy. Save them gas, time, and effort. So I'm not sure somebody shouldn't broach that with them, but it's not my mailbox. They're not going to like it because they're going to have to walk down to 18th to pick up their mail. But it is a reasonable solution. It wouldn't cost that much. I don't know who puts in the mailboxes, if those complex ones, the 12 packs. Yeah. So that would,
it gives you a chance to meet your neighbors,
yeah.
a sense of community.
So I don't know who we should suggest it to. I could contact the post office and see what they think of it, just for fun. I'll do that. How's that?
Okay. Thank you, David. Okay, so currently, seems like with the data that Officer Winning has provided, it's not a speed issue, it's a perception issue. So we're,
Getting your mail is a problem.
as far as
Unsolvable.
reducing the speed, it's per Counselor Parsons. That's a minor artillery on
Arterial.
Verda, and we can't really reduce the speed limit. I think we should move on.
Well, we should send them a letter, we should make a motion and do something with the issue.
Just said they are.
Okay. Trevor's gonna take care of it.
Thank you, Trevor. Thank you for that really in-depth data analysis and the headaches you got from all those standard deviations and statistics. And okay, let's move on to committee reports, committee member reports. Kathy, can we start with you?
Sure. In fact, my first issue is something very pertinent to what we've been talking about. The Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments, which works with all the jurisdictions in this area, and OMPOC, which is the Municipal Planning Association Consortium, are preparing a list of legislative priorities to have kind of a group of legislative priority suggestions for next legislative session that are supported and that local jurisdictions are interested in. And one of them is that they've come up with, some of the other folks have come up with, is a local authority over speed limits, which would allow Oregon cities to opt in to drop their speeds on residential streets 5 miles lower than the state speed limits. So that's one issue that the COG is going to be talking to the legislature about. As a matter of fact, ODOT is already convening a group to discuss local authority of speed limits outside of the legislative session. So it might become easier for cities to drop their speed limits in situations like this, which I still think is important, because 35 miles an hour is fast enough, and if you're averaging more than that, that's scary. And if you want to encourage people to use alternate forms other than a car, it's not encouraging. Some of the other legislative priorities are to support investments in community bicycle and pedestrian improvements, and prioritize safety and universal access. There's a whole list of them here too, and if this committee or the city of Keizer wants to back any of these, I would suggest contacting COG so that they know that they do, and the more support they get from, little groups and cities and around in their area, the more support they'll have for that at the legislature.
Can you tell me again what COG stands for?
Council of Governments, and
Okay,
it's the
thank you.
Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments. And they, pardon?
Have those been voted on to push forward to the legislature? or-
Not yet, they're still gathering input. The Sean O'Day, who's the director of the COG, was at the SCATS meeting a couple weeks ago, Salem Keizer Area Transportation Study Policy Committee, and then he was also at the Area Commissions on Transportation meeting last week, and urging anyone who has an interest in backing any of these proposals to let them know, and what we're interested in, what we'd like to see.
How could we do that?
Well-
Individually or as a group?
Well, I think as a group, you always have more sway if there's more people. So I think our committee could do that, City of Keizer could do that, I don't know, maybe they already have, the planning department is probably keyed into this, because I know that Nate is on the SCATS technical committee, and so Nate Brown probably already knows about this. But if this committee wanted to, I would be happy to write something up and send it in,
Some things we're interested in?
it, yeah. And I could send you, well, I guess we can't do that by email, can we?
How soon?
Well, legislature hasn't gone into session yet, so.
I mean, do we have till next meeting? Can we decide?
Yes, yeah, we do. We have till next meeting. And maybe I could send this out to you so you could see what all their legislative ideas are. And then there's a form here too, if you have something new that you want to
Can
come
we
up
send
with.
it back to you when you collate it, and then the next meeting we'll
Or
put it on the agenda for the next meeting?
you would, maybe you'll send it out?
Well, I think the list of legislative priorities, I can send that to everyone, and then if you want to comment back, and then compile that, and then talk about that at the next meeting.
Okay.
If people have thoughts about what's out there.
There we go.
What's the legislative priorities are, and then make your list of priorities
Right,
from that.
right,
Or
Right.
maybe we'll come up with something new,
Or-
you never know.
yeah.
Okay, good idea.
Okay. And then one other thing, two other things. Thanks to David and Michael for going to the city council with our Safe Routes to School proposal. I watched that on the TV thing, and you guys did a good job. And while I was doing that, I went back and just checked on our TV appearances here, and we don't talk into the microphone enough. I couldn't hear anyone, including me. So I've been very consciously trying to talk into the microphone more tonight.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah.
David, do you have something that you'd like to share?
Sure. The Keizer Fire District's Fire Prevention Week open house is October 8th, 2018. It's an open house at the fire department, police department, CERT, lots of different groups there. We usually go, or at least I go, and give helmets out to kids. And when we ran out of helmets at ServFest, we said that the next time people could get them from us would be the fire department's open house.
Public Works is also doing their open house the same night, just so everybody knows, in conjunction with the fire department.
Who
Public
is?
Works- Public Works,
Next door.
yep.
Okay.
Both behind, yeah.
That's October 8th, Monday, 6:30 to 8:30.
So
Do we have helmets? Do we
we
want to
have
do that?
we have helmets, we have brochures. Unless somebody objects, I'm willing to set it up. I could use a couple people to help. It lasts about an hour and a half. I'm usually there early and have everything set up, so if you just show up at 6:30,
Where's this?
it's 2 hours long, they said. So I'll have it set up, I just need somebody to help.
When's it? What's the date?
October 8th,
6:30 to 8:30.
Monday, October 8th.
Oh,
No, I've done it by myself before.
I'll see if I can do
I have a work session.
Mike, you might try and make it?
it. Yeah, I'll check my.
You going on a cruise? Anybody else?
I'm not.
Hirsch has been there 2 of the last 3 years, so I'll get a hold of him.
Okay. Michael, anything that you've been working on?
Nothing I've been working on, but there is an issue. I don't know if it's something we need to have a full discussion on at the next meeting, or if it's something we can do or direct Public Works. I don't know, but the bike path that goes behind the Waremart.
Where?
Waremart. There's a bike path that connects behind the Waremart to the street on.
So what?
It's a tiny little.
It's a hole in
Through
the gate.
fence.
Yeah, no, it's
Fence.
fenced along, so the properties are, people aren't going. So it's about 25 feet, maybe. What's that? Well, so I've noticed that when the trucks who are parked to do deliveries at the Waremart in the morning, some of them like to creep closer and closer to that entryway, so it makes it more and more difficult to bike through there. So I don't know if the city would, or if we'd have the property owner paint a yellow or a red stripe on the curb right there, so that the delivery trucks know not to park to a certain point.
Private property, I don't think we have anything that we can really enforce them to do along that curb.
Even though it's part of the bikeway.
That piece was added just for access to that neighborhood, so, I mean, I understand your frustration there, but I don't really think there's a lot of enforcement we can do on Public Works' part.
We haven't sent them a letter or talked to them yet.
No, we have not. So I guess it would be something we would have to send them a letter, or is that
Well,
something?
we could, we're asking the management of Ware Mart, is that what it is? To
advise their
talk to their
delivery.
truck drivers and not block the path, access to the path. Do you want to?
I could write.
Could you write the letter?
I could write the letter.
Wayne will sign it. We should check with Debbie to make sure we write the letter correctly, though.
Pat, welcome back from your travels. Would you like to add anything to the committee?
I think most of my activities I've mentioned already. I was, just making several phone calls, including to city staff, to ODOT staff, to the West Keizer Neighborhood Association, all of that around the proposal being developed for the Cummings Elementary School Safe Routes Project. And so that's been my activity as far as this committee.
Okay, thank you for your help and your suggestions on enhancing their proposal for Cummings. I've been working on House Bill 2017, trying to accumulate letters, writing the worksheet for the application for Kennedy currently. And there will also be another page that we need to do, a signature page before it goes in. And I'm going to get that started. I want to get those tallies for both the schools, tallies of how kids arrive to school. And the teachers need to actually do that and then send us the results. So that's what I've been working on. I want to keep those two House Bill 2017 projects moving. That's all I have. Staff report. Mike, please.
So let's see here. Dearborn Bridge ribbon cutting is set for the last week of September. Not sure exactly that date. Should know here, I think by the 20th. We can pin that date down. So that's something to look forward to here. That'll be open here pretty quickly. Our storm crew right now is out cleaning catch basins in preparation for the rainy season. So you're going to see our big backcon truck driving around, popping catch basin lids and manhole lids, cleaning, getting ready for the rainy season. And then Dave mentioned it with the fire department, but October 8th, that Monday night, Keizer Public Works is having their open house. So come on by. That's all I got.
Thank you, Mike. Can we have our
Trevor?
police report? Trevor, please.
So I'll keep this short since I seem to talk a lot already tonight. Our new BMW motorcycle is in. Officer Powell, who is slated to come to the traffic team in November timeframe, is currently in training this week and next week, and we are hoping and praying that he passes motor school, which is a very difficult endeavor. It's one of the top 3 difficult courses behind crash reconstruction, which is all math and physics, and drug recognition expert training, which is all memorization. So it's a very difficult course. So he's currently in that. Sergeant Leday and Officer Wampler are refreshing their skills on the motorcycle. They are riding as much as they possibly can during their shifts when they have full teams. The grant year is coming to a close for my DUI, seatbelt, and speed grants. I'll have the results of those next month. I'll share those, but you'll probably get them most likely in a press release to the city probably before that time frame. And again, the traffic team is looking to be, it's anticipated they're going to be up and running here sometime in November, maybe even early December. And that's all I have.
You've got 5 new officers. Is that?
We've got quite a few officers, and there's some changes going on over at the police department. There's some retirements. There's some out of the blue retirements. So we are looking at our list and seeing who the next person in the queue is to get them. We just had Monday, we sent our latest, one of the first female officers we've had in a long time, was hired by us, passed everything, and was sent, her first day was Monday at the police academy. And then I think the next person up in the queue is, because of our retirements, we're looking at maybe even hiring another person here very quickly.
Okay, very good. Counselor Parsons, may we
thank-
get your council liaison report, please?
Thank you. So on Tuesday, the 18th, next Tuesday, we're going to be getting a crew together to repaint some of the big toy structure before the rainy season comes, because the paint's been peeling. We want to make it safe, and keep it nice looking. And then, as Trevor said, we gave an oath of office actually to 6 police officers on Monday at our city council meeting. 5 of them were because of the fee, the police fee. And then the female was from the retirement of Officer Badcock. And like he said, we had retirements are being in the next few years, so I think we're going to have to keep up on that just to keep our force the way we want it. When we get it the way we want it, and then people retire, so then you got to work at it again. So,
Finally get them trained.
then we passed the signed ordinance. Finally, it's done. 15-second reader sign now. Window screens, which you've already seen anyway around town. 50% of an awning can be covered with some sort of a logo or something. And that we did that for the sake of In-N-Out Burger, by the way. So, because they do palm trees and stuff on their awnings. And then we just the limited number of big for sale lease signs, we kind of that stuck to a certain size that they could be and how many there could be on the property. So those were the biggest changes to the sign code, and it should take effect here pretty soon. And then that's really all I have.
Okay, thank you. Do you have anything else? There is something that we've talked about earlier, and that was signs along our bike path, signage to get into the various locations, and we've kind of have forgotten about that. So if we can just make a note that we need to talk about signage, parkway signage, and see if we can actually get something done there. We've been talking about it, and then we forgot about it, and then or I forgot about it. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you for coming. Wait. Oh yeah, yes. Oh, Debbie has something she wants to tell us.
On your map, the back of your agenda, you have advertisement sort of thing. It's about do you remember last year you had a leadership class that you could take? They provided a small meal, and then they had some teachers there that were well-known to teach people how to have effective boards. It's being offered again. It's a little different, so if you went last year, it wouldn't be the same as that year. But the members of our boards, the city boards, go for free. So read what's on the back of your agenda, and then Kathy's going to pass down the sign-up sheet. So, because they need to know who's coming, so they know how many meals to provide. And you go for free, and it has a date on it. I think it's October 16th.
18th.
18th, 5:30 to 8:30. You could come in at 4:45. Light dinner at 5 o'clock. So we do have a sign-up sheet, Building Better Boards, and that sign-up sheet's going around.
If we don't sign up today, what's the latest that you need to know?
You can call me
Okay.
when you decide, and I'll just add you to the list. They say they're October 10th, but I think even if we're a little bit after that, as long as there's not too many.
That's all I have. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for your time and your research, and have a good night.